Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our astrology festival. Today, we are honored and very thankful to have astrologist Chrissie Blaze with us. Just to give you guys a brief introduction, she has worked for many years in the field of karmic astrology and the impact past lives can have on our current life. She was a disciple for Dr. King for, I believe, over 25 years. And we're sure she's going to tell us all about that also. And she has authored many, many books, including one about the power of prayer, which I'm very curious about and I will be asking some questions about. So, hello again, Chrissy, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for having me on this, international festival that you're, doing right now. So I'm pleased to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Since from what I've been able to gather, your journey kind of started when you joined Dr. King's team. How do you feel that influenced you? And would you like to share some things you learned and still maybe practice today?
Well, actually, it started a long time before that. So perhaps I can go back a little. It started when I was a child, when I had relatives who were very interested in esoteric subjects. My aunt, my great aunt, my cousin were all theosophists and Rosicrucians, and they were also very keen on astrology. And I remember when I was quite young, I was about 14, and my aunt first showed me an astrology chart, a birth chart. I'd never seen it before in my life. And I just seemed to, in that instant, understand it. It made sense to me. The language of symbols awakens something in me, something deep within me. And after that, I went on a quest of esoteric subjects and went into theosophy and mystic Christianity and Rosicrucianism, and finally found the Aetherius Society, and also my master became my master, Dr. George King, who founded it in England in 1955. I was in my early 20s at that time. And I had also been studying astrology and qualified at the Faculty of Astrological Studies in London. And my practice was sort of subsumed in a way by my work in the Aetherius Society. But then Dr. King was also sort of encouraged me to do it, and I carried on doing it and have since then had clients from around the world over the years. But certainly the Aetherius Society did help me to find my own path within astrology, if you like.
So nowadays, what would you say is the field you kind of focus on in astrology?
Yeah, it's I know nowadays astrology is becoming very complex, where people are looking for the significance of dwarf planets and fixed stars and asteroids and so forth. But my approach is simplicity. And because I feel that astrology is a tool that can be so helpful to everyone. And so my books are really on trying to get people to understand it and use it as a guidebook. Because really, if you think about it, when we're born, we're given this guidebook to life, which is our birth chart. And actually, I took a class once, and there was a lady who was in her 80s who came to the class, and she was really excited. And she said to me, "Oh, it's so fantastic to find that I have this guidebook, my astrology chart." She said, "But I wish I'd found it about 80 years ago." And so everybody has access to this. Most people don't realize how very helpful it can be, Anna. And I know you do, but I like to, although they say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, I also think if the simple aspects of astrology, like the sun signs, can be presented in a way that people, in the right way, people can understand, they can find even this very, very helpful. Because many people say to me, well, I'm nothing like my sun sign. Well, my answer is, well, yeah, you should be, because in this lifetime, that's what you're learning about. It's the director of the play, if you like. It's very, very important. And so simple things like this is the way I approach astrology, which is kind of different now from the way astrology is being approached, because obviously all these things evolve over the years, over the decades. But it's something I stick to. I feel you have to keep going back to the basics. And so other people are looking into, far into space, and that's good. That's all good, part of the evolution of astrology. But I like to stick to the simplicity, because I believe, especially in this Aquarian age, which we're coming into even more strongly now that Pluto is in Aquarius, that everybody will have access to more and more of these kinds of sciences. It's part of this Aquarian age. And astrology is so much a part of the Aquarian age, being ruled by Uranus and so forth, that I think my part, and not just me, of course, many other astrologers too, are trying to make it very accessible to people.
Okay, so thank you for touching on the subject, by the way, because I was meaning to ask you, what do you think this age of Aquarius, Pluto moving into Aquarius, has in store for us? And do you think it would be mostly positive? What are your predictions on it?
Well, I think, as you know, and I'm sure, when Pluto moves into a sign, it can be very difficult, because Pluto's job, this tiny little planet, which astronomers like to throw out as a planet some years ago, but have actually accepted it back, I think, after a lot of pressure from astrologers. This tiny little planet has a tremendous effect. And what it's doing, of course, is to kind of anything that's wrong with our lives personally and the world as a whole, and we know there's a lot wrong, it likes to kind of shatter, or kind of grind it down, if you like, grind these things down until we become what we really are, and that is divine and godly. And so Pluto is helping us in that way, but it's very often very, very painful in the process. So I do think that the next few years, as it's just coming into the sign, it's leaving briefly and coming in fully then, we're going to see a lot of Aquarian type things, like we are already, of course, because the Aquarian age, I believe, has been in existence since the 1960s. And I can talk about that, my theory about that. But it's now kind of fully in the Aquarian age. I think we'll find more and more positive things, which we are finding already, like the growing interest in things like astrology, more power to the people, if you like. People are realizing that we don't have to be ruled by just a few politicians on this world, that we have a lot of power to change things. And through things like prayer, the book that you mentioned, and the type of prayer we teach is kind of more like world healing, if you like. And so there's many good things, but it will be painful. It's almost like still at the birth of this new age, I think. It will be painful, but we have to realize that it's is leading us in the right direction. It's helping to lead us together with the other planets, of course, but Pluto has a really strong effect, I feel.
Well, thank you for your perspective on this. Since you mentioned again, the book about prayer, would you care to elaborate on what you explored while writing it, and what do you think the power of prayer is and how we can use it, since you've talked about astrology and spirituality as a whole being a useful tool for us in our development as humans?
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up. Useful tool, that's interesting you said that, because that's another thing about this Aquarian age. We have to learn to be not just idealistic, but practical idealists to really make a difference. And we need as many tools as we can, positive tools. And actually, my husband and I, Gary Blaze, wrote the book in rather unusual circumstances. We were, at the time, climbing a holy mountain, Mount Talac in Northern California. And when we got to the top, the weather changed drastically. And instead of being a nice sunny day, as it normally is in California, the clouds became black. And it was very strange, And so we decided to run down the mountain as fast as we could, which we did. And on the way down, it was raining, it was pouring, it was windy. The weather was terrible. And I believe in divas. That's another whole subject, that they control the weather. And so I was thinking, what's going on in the world? When we came down the bottom of the mountain, we saw all these flags at half mast, and we didn't know what was going on. But we got back to our hotel where we were staying, and we were told that this was the tragedy that happened on 9/11. And when the towers came down and so forth, you know, the story, 9/11. And so we decided on the way home that we should write a book about this type of prayer that our spiritual master, Dr. George King, devised. And it's, as I say, it's more like a form of world healing. He devised it, and it can also be used to heal an individual as well. And so the book was around that technique, teaching people how to use it. And at that time, you're probably too young to remember, but it was over 20 years ago, everybody was talking about prayer after this terrible tragedy. Everyone was saying they would be praying for it and so forth. And so this book was very timely, and I think it's still just as useful today, because so often people say, what can I do? You know, you hear about the suffering in the world. What can I do? Well, this is one thing that everyone can do, because we have within us this natural ability to heal. And prayer is a form of healing, if you like. And so we teach the technique step by step, how to do it. Basically, it's very, very simple. Everyone can do it. They can just raise their hands and offer a prayer from their heart, and allow the love, imbue it with their love, and allow this power of love to flow out to the focal point of their prayer. And this is basically what the book's about, and it keeps going strong, this book. But it's very different from I used to work in a theological college at King's College London for 7 years, and it was very fascinating. I worked for the dean of the college. But one thing that kind of upset me was the type of prayer that they did, without any feeling or any seeming belief in the result. They probably did, but that's how it came across. And so this is a very different type of prayer. It's using your heart, your soul, every part of you to project this energy through you to the whoever you're sending it. And great healing can take place. And I've seen examples over many years with this.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you mentioned a lot about healing and, energy. And do you think, well, to say it better, how do you think this focus on collective healing and sending, our positive energy and our love into the world has affected your view and your work in the astrologic field? Do you think that has impacted the way that you work with clients?
Yes, I think so, definitely. There are many things that have affected the way I work with clients. It's probably a bit different from most people. I use a form of astrology, as you mentioned, karmic astrology, and that was greatly influenced by Dr. King, who is a master of many different forms of yoga, but particularly his favorite, or the one which he teaches is for this age, is karma yoga, the yoga of service, direct action. And he taught, being a master of this, he taught ways in which you can positively affect your karma, manipulate it if you like, but that's not has bad connotations, that word, but positively affect your karma. And so when I have a client who has a particularly difficult period coming up, I would not only give them ways that they can help to alleviate the difficulties, and that's what karmic astrology does, I think, but also techniques they can use, such as healing, prayer, and so forth. And I simply teach them that, which will really help them, visualizations, breathing exercises, and all those good things as well.
Well, I can see from what you're telling me that your approach is both spiritual but also very practical, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
with your guidebooks. Do you think that becoming a little bit more practical in our spiritual practices would be Is it important to do that going into the future? And would that help us navigate the changes that, the age of Aquarius is bringing upon us?
Yes, because the Aquarian age, as I'm sure you know, is ruled by two planets. Obviously, Uranus, the planet of revolution and revelation, and Saturn, the planet of tradition and practicality, among other things. And so I think our spirituality has to be a practical one. And this is something else that Dr. King emphasized in his teachings. And if people are interested, they can see the website. His website is drgeorgeking.org. There's also the Aetherius Society, which he founded, which is aetherius.org, which is AETHERIUS. And there people can learn about some of the practical methods that we do. But I think it's essential. Spirituality should be a practical thing, not just an ideal or a philosophy. It has to be something real to bring change, because we're trying to bring change to ourselves, our physical bodies, and to a very physical world as well. So it takes practicality to do that.
Of course.
I mean, I've got moon and Mercury in Taurus, so I'm an Aries, but I've got moon and Mercury in Taurus, so that's why I have a practical bent to my approach to astrology and everything, really.
Well, that also seems like it makes it really accessible to a wider public, because sometimes it tends to be complicated, the discourse around astrology and spirituality as a whole.
Yeah, of course, there's room for that. There's many intellectual people that are attracted to astrology, and everybody has a different path. But in these days, I'm feeling there's a strong need for people, number one, to understand themselves. And as we know, there's so much mental confusion and so forth, and astrology is such a wonderful, beautiful, and helpful science that I'd love it to be known about by as many people as possible. I feel it can really, really help people in so many ways. And yes, I think, was there another part to the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry. You answered. Don't worry.
Okay.
So we know that you authored some books about parenting, specifically following your child's star sign, and how, and in order to help parents, navigate raising a child. You also mentioned, the anecdote about the lady who wished she would have found out about astrology sooner. Do you think it is important, or at least beneficial for parents and new parents, to get into astrology, and their baby's chart in order to help them become the best version of themselves?
Well, I do, obviously. Some parents may not want to use astrology and allow the child to just develop naturally. But you can still do that using astrology. It just helps the parents to understand them better, I think, and kind of guide them in the right direction towards their destiny. I'm a big believer that obviously we all have a need to find the right career and the right partner in life if we wish to, and a family and all these things that we all need, But to me, one of the most important things is to find our destiny, our path, the path that's for us, the path where we can have the most significant, the most fulfilling, joyful life. And so if parents can see the path of their child in an early age, I think it will help them to guide them in the right direction. They may not, a child may not, growing up, have a desire to earn a lot of money. They may have more spiritual leanings or in music or various things. So it helps them to put them in that right direction, I think.
So would it be correct to, let's say, assume that if a parent were to consider and take into account, the astrological tendencies of their child, what they're like inclined to do, it will help them to let them develop as a person individually? Because sometimes, parents tend to impose a little bit of themselves on their child. What do you think about this?
Yeah. Now, I have done charts for for parents of children, of babies and so forth. And in fact, only recently, a client, an old client I hadn't spoken to in a long time, called me, and she was there with her baby, and she just wanted to ask me something. It wasn't a chart, but I asked her how her baby was doing, and she said, "Oh, do you know that chart you did for her when she was just born? It's absolutely 100% accurate." She said, "It's exactly the kind of person she's becoming." And it's about 3 or 4 years on from when I did the chart. And so it was really nice to hear that. All astrologers love to hear that.
Of
It was
course.
nice to hear that. And other people have said that too. So I'm always, it's in some ways it's harder to do. I find it's much harder to do a chart for a baby or a child. But because when you're doing a chart for a person, an individual, then you can tune into that individual better. You know, it's easier to do that, I think.
Yeah. So we also touched on the subject of, forgotten planets. We talked about Pluto being included and then secluded again and then included. And we know that one of your latest works is about the Earth and the energy of the Earth and how it has been, sometimes looked over by astrology practitioners. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on it? What do you think, the main essence of the Earth's energy is?
So thank you for bringing that up, Anna, because this is something really, really important to me. The Earth and astrology. Can I just tell you a little bit about the background to that? Many years ago, I was a student of Alice Bailey's works. I don't know if you are aware of those. One book that she wrote on esoteric astrology, which her books were channeled, most of them anyway, by a master from the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, the master Dwal Kul. And I read this when I was quite young, but it was very difficult for me to understand. Because when my grandmother died, she left me Alice Bailey books, and I was only 4 at the time. So as soon as I could read, I was trying to grapple with this book. But one thing that stood out to me is that the master Dwal Kul, and I have the quote here, said, I was hoping you might ask me that. He said, this was a book again, Esoteric Astrology. He said, there is one aspect of energy for which the modern astrologer makes very little allowance. And these books were written in the 1940s, I think. And yet it is of paramount importance. This is the energy which emanates from or radiates from the earth itself. Astrologers have omitted to take into adequate consideration the emanating qualities and forces which are the contribution of our earth to the larger whole. And that was written, as I say, in this book. And that stuck with me through many decades. And I kept looking for books on the earth. And there may be 1 or 2, but I never could find any really, and really complete ones. And then all of a sudden, it was about 2017, a few years ago, I thought, well, I might as well just give it a go. I've got now a lot of experience in astrology, and I've got some experience in writing. There was another thing that really prompted me to write it, because Dr. King too was very, very concerned about the Earth as a planet, as a living, breathing, advanced intelligence, is what he used to teach. He's now passed away, but he used to teach that. And this really affected me too. And he said that every sort of spiritual tradition should have at its heart the earth, the Mother Earth, because if you think about it, without the earth, we couldn't live, breathe, evolve. We rely on her for so much, and yet the tendency of the majority of humanity, not the minority, the tendency is to regard the earth as a resource which is there for us. And yet he instilled in us, Dr. King, that she, the earth goddess, if you like, was more involved than all of humanity, was a great advanced intelligence. And if you look at the solar system, all of these planets are great advanced intelligences, the beauty, the harmony, the perfection. The fact that they can affect us us all so much, all living things. And so this really affected me too. And he also, he invented in 1966 a mission called Operation Sunbeam, which is still performed today by the Ethereal Society, in which spiritual energies originally intended for the use of humanity are instead given to Mother Earth through various chakras. These, like a token repayment for the vast energies which humanity has thoughtlessly taken from this goddess with very little thought of repayment or even gratitude. It's a huge karmic manipulation on behalf of humanity, a positive move on behalf of humanity that continues, as I say, today and into the future. So this and many other things that Dr. King did around to help the earth. He taught us, prayers for the earth and so forth. He received a series of teachings. He was able to receive communication from masters, from the spiritual hierarchy, from beyond this earth. And one series of teachings he received were called the 12 blessings. He received over 12 Sundays from no less a great avatar than the Master Jesus. And we have these, we use these as fantastic prayers. One of them is dedicated, the seventh blessing, to the Mother Earth. And it's very profound, very deep, very beautiful. And it's something we can use also to send our love to the earth. Now, how is this relevant to my understanding of astrology? Well, all of this, I suppose, prompted me to write the book. And I wrote it kind of as a challenge to astrologers. And I'm throwing out this challenge because I'm an Aries. I like to start things, right? But I'm not so good at finishing. So I threw out my own sort of, I thought deeply about it. I feel that I did have some inspirations. I had some help, I believe, from my guide, one of my guides. But I'm hoping that other astrologers will come along and challenge what I've written about the earth. Now, everybody can easily find their earth sign. And this is so important too. We know our sun sign, right? What's your sun sign, Anna? Can I ask you?
I'm a Scorpio.
The Scorpio, one of my favorite signs. Oh, much maligned, but very, very interesting indeed. So your opposite, your earth sign is exactly opposite, 180 degrees. So it's Taurus, of course, the practical Taurus. Yeah. And so traditional astrology is geocentric, as you know, with the earth at the center, because we're born on earth. We're interpreting the universe from our vantage point on earth. And we know the sun, as the center of this solar system, is heliocentric. So that's why the earth in astrology is opposite the sun, exactly opposite. If you know your sun sign, you know your earth sign. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important, of course, to know your sun sign. And because it's, as I say, the director of your play in life, you've got to inhabit your sun sign as much as you can. But it's also important to know your earth sign. And do you ever feel, Anna, that you're kind of in a balancing act with your life?
Most of the time.
The earth and the sun and the earth. The sun is the primary one, of course, but the earth too presents our good dharma, if you like, what we're here on earth to do. So being a Scorpio, you'll follow your feelings quite often. You're very intuitive. You have strong, strong feelings about things. But Taurus, the path you need to take is more of a practical one, which will ground your deep feelings about things. And so it may be a path of, it's probably a slightly dangerous path, knowing Scorpios. You might be the kind of person, I'm not saying you particularly, but who would want to go and become a rescue worker and doing something very practical to kind of ground your strong feelings for people and things. And so the earth, in a way, gives us a direction, and it, as does the sun sign, but it is part of your destiny, if you like, just as well as the North Node is and various things I look as destiny points. So this is my feeling about the earth. And I have gone through all the different earth signs and sun sign combinations. in my book as well.
Well, thank you. That was fascinating. And also thank you for telling me a little bit about myself. I was not expecting that.
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, can I just say something else about karmic astrology?
Yes, surely.
Um, yeah, I think something that could be very helpful to new people is that when we look at our birth chart, we see certain difficulties, and I regard them, I call them karmic knots, if you like. Maybe we've created them in past lives. What we have, because the chart is when you're born, so obviously we have created them in past lives. But I see them also as gateways of opportunity to further advancement of ourselves. And rather than trying to avoid them, as people often do, I found, we can sort of use them, inhabit them, learn from them. And the way to do that is to, well, let me give you an example about myself, actually. When I was quite young, when I was 16, I was told by a famous palmist I went to see that I had a short lifeline. And then he gave me the age at which I pass on, which I don't think anyone doing these kind of these things should tell anybody, but he did. And over the last few years, I've been going through bone marrow cancer. I am now better, but I could have died at a certain age, which he said. Well, I determined to find the cause, the karmic cause, to look at the karmic knot in my chart, contemplate on it, pray about it, and find what it was. And because I thought to myself, I have way too much to do on this physical plane. I really do. I haven't got time to pass on, basically. And so I found the karmic knot. I found what it was through a lot of searching. And I decided that one has to do the work to clear these knots. And if we do, we can really advance, we can really move on. So I tried during this time when I was ill to give service, to do spiritual practices, to be grateful for the opportunity, which I really am now because I learned so much during this period. And because I never ever want to be a victim of anything in life. I want always to be a warrior and master of whatever's going on. And that's just me. But I think it's helpful for other people to drop any victim mentality. I really do. Because everything's karma, right? And everything can be changed for the better. And there's another thing about looking at the chart, opportunities. That's a positive. You say that's the positive side. Now the karmic knots, the difficulties, are the negative karma, but the opportunities are the positive karma. And myself, I've been guilty of ignoring opportunities and not taking them by thinking, I'm not ready for this. Well, when it comes along, take it. That's my advice. Take the opportunity, even if you don't feel ready, because it means you are ready when it comes along. And so that's something I always tell to my clients too. In the past, because I've got Saturn and Mars in my first house, I tend to think, oh, no, I'm not ready for this. But this is one way, again, to change our karma for the better. Because I think the birth chart it seems to be set in stone, because there it is. But it's always, we're changing it every second of every day of our lives. And the next time we're born, we'll have a much different birth chart, hopefully a much, much better one.
Yes. So it's safe to say that what you're trying to do through your work is also try to change people's perspective on the whole concept of karma, and that it is not inherently negative. It's just something that is there and that can be developed and worked on, and hopefully it can become more positive for our lifetimes as they go on.
Exactly, Anna. You've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it's a very dynamic, exciting, joyful world in which we live. We can do so much. They say that on this physical plane, this is where we can achieve the most. When we pass on, we'll go to other realms of existence, higher, hopefully, Some people go to lower realms depending on the level to which they vibrate when they pass on. And you can carry on learning on the other realms, and you do, but you can achieve so much more on this physical plane. And so it's such a tragedy that so many young people are, feeling hopeless, committing suicide in large numbers. And there's so many sort of simple ways that I think we could help them, us astrologers, and other people too, many other people too, of course. But it's a wonderful science, and I think meant to be used to help, to serve. That's another thing about it. It's meant to be used to serve others, I think.
So since you've mentioned it a couple times, this focus on service, do you feel that is your purpose with your practice, to guide and serve?
Yes, I do. I feel that's the purpose of my life, actually. So I also teach spiritual topics and many other things. And I feel it's such an important thing in these days as well, for us all. And actually, I was very surprised recently to read that they did a survey in, I think it was about 5 years ago, of 140 countries and asked questions of people. It was quite a well-known survey, but I can't remember the name. Anyway, the finding was that 2 billion people on this planet are actually giving service in one form or another. It may be donating money, it may be helping a stranger, it may be working for a spiritual organization or a charity. And I was very pleased, because all we hear on the news is the bad news, right?
It's
But
tragedy.
because another thing Dr. King taught was that the biggest energy crisis facing humanity, and he taught this in the 1960s and onwards, was the lack of spiritual energy, because he regarded spirituality as a way to release energy into the world, to direct spiritual energy, love into the world, if you like. It's another word for it, the energy of LOVE. He called this actually the energy age. And if you think about it, energy, this spiritual energy, this love energy, helps to raise consciousness, right? And if we put enough of it into the world, if enough people are sending their love through their work, their service, through their prayers, through their healing, through their positive thinking, through their gratitude and so forth, then it would raise consciousness of humanity. And if consciousness is raised, then that would diminish the possibility of having war, of having starvation, because there is enough to go around. There's just not the consciousness. Consciousness seems to be too low on this planet. Why are we killing each other? I mean, things like these big questions haunt me, and I'm sure they do. I feel they do as you as well, Anna.
Yeah, they certainly do.
Yeah. So, this spiritual energy crisis, he said, if that one was solved, if enough people were sending this energy, this love into the world in different ways, and he taught various techniques to do that, simple techniques, then all the other energy crises would eventually come into balance as well. So
about practices we can implement to help reach this higher level of awareness. You mentioned yoga. Is that something you still practice today?
Yeah, I don't do hatha yoga. There are many forms of yoga. Hatha yoga is the most popular, as you probably know. But there are mantra yoga. I do mudra yoga. I do karma yoga is the main one, service. There's Nani yoga, the yoga of wisdom, and there's hatha yoga, the yoga of, I suppose it's kind of related to astrology, really, because it's about knowing yourself, and all the different yogas. And so the one I think the most useful one is karma yoga, but there's many, many different ones we do. Of course, hatha yoga, if you are doing it and can do it, yes, it's very, very helpful to maintain the physical health and so forth. Yes. But right now, I think I stick to my exercises, which are not quite so demanding.
Of course, yes. You also touched on receiving guidance from, beings of higher vibrational frequencies. Has that happened often, or was it something that you encountered mostly while working with Master King?
Yeah, no, it was actually, it hasn't happened often, no, to be honest. I feel that we're all guided all the time. We have guides, everybody does. But I'm a bit thick, and most of the time I'm so busy, focused on my work, that I kind of ignore any promptings. But every now and then it's like you something whacks you around the head and you do take notice. And when I was writing this book about the earth, actually, um, I was feeling that I was being guided. I was kind of inspired. And that does happen sometimes when I'm writing. I get sort of inspiration. And I think that comes maybe from my higher self, but also from guides too. But there was one particular night when I was woken up about 3 in the morning, and I got a message from a guide, one of my guides who I do know. And he more or less told me I had to rewrite the book. And he gave me a little passage which gave me the direction in which I should write the book. And what I realized he was telling me, and I did rewrite most of the book actually, I didn't have enough of the influence of the earth and how we could reconnect with the earth. And this is actually a Native American guide. And of course, the Native American culture, they are very aware of earth as a goddess, and they do give back to the earth through various rituals and gratitude and so forth. And so it was interesting that he was helping me, inspiring me, but also gave me this sort of whack on the head at 3 in the morning, woke me up and gave me this passage, which changed the direction and made it more spiritual, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I think, this fascinating anecdote is a perfect way to reach our conclusion, unless there is anything in particular you would like to add about any of the topics we've touched on.
Oh, I think we could talk all day, couldn't we? But I know you have to get on. But uh,
Well, that is all right.
I,
Go on.
I think, yeah, I'd like to thank you very much, Anna. You've been a fantastic interviewer, and it's
Oh,
my
thank
honor
you.
to be here today. But I hope people who might listen to this might take away something from it that's helpful to them. Hopefully, that's my only desire with astrology, that I can help people to learn more about themselves and to also use it to help others. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's a beautiful message. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you all in the next interview.
Thank you so much, Anna. Have a great day. Thank you. Blessings.